In a prestigious jewelry store on Madison Avenue, an honor student's smile fades, as whispers turn to accusations, and a simple gift becomes a nightmare. But they don't know. Behind his calm exterior lies a secret that will make them all regret. What happens next will change more than just one afternoon. It was a crisp autumn afternoon on Madison Avenue, where New York's elite browsed through designer boutiques as casually as others might stroll through a mall. The October sun caught the edge of every window display, turning price tags into glinting promises of status and luxury. For James Wilson, none of that mattered. The 17-year-old honor student's attention was focused solely on the delicate silver bracelet he'd been eyeing for weeks at Harrison & Company Jewelers. His sister Emma's 16th birthday was approaching, and after months of saving tips from his weekend tutoring sessions, he finally had enough. The acceptance letter from Harvard sat in his jacket pocket, still crisp despite how many times he'd reread it that morning. His mother had always taught him that education was the key to any door, but today, standing before the gleaming storefront of Harrison & Company, James couldn't help but wonder if some doors required more than just academic achievements to open. Checking his phone one last time, 2:47 p.m., he took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy glass door. The soft chime announcing his entrance seemed to echo unusually loud in the hushed interior. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across displays of diamonds and precious gems. The air smelled of leather and expensive perfume, and the soft classical music playing overhead felt more like a soundtrack to a movie scene than background noise. Behind the counter, Karen Matthews looked up from her computer screen, her perfectly manicured fingers pausing over the keyboard. Her smile, practiced and professional, flickered for just a moment as she took in James's appearance, his pressed khakis and blue Oxford shirt at odds with her apparent expectations. "Can I help you?" Karen's voice carried a note of carefully measured suspicion, her eyes darting to the security camera in the corner. James maintained his polite smile, the one his mother had taught him to wear in situations exactly like this. "Yes, I'm interested in the silver charm bracelet in the front display. The one with the butterfly pendant." He watched Karen's perfectly plucked eyebrows arch slightly. The bracelet he'd pointed to was priced at $850, not the most expensive piece in the store by far, but enough to make her lips purse in doubt. "That's a rather specific choice," she said, making no move toward the display case. "Are you sure you're in the right store?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. James felt his phone buzz in his pocket but didn't check it. He knew who it was. His mother always had impeccable timing. Instead, he reached into his other pocket and pulled out his wallet. "I've been saving for 3 months, he said, voice steady. "I'd like to see it, please." Karen's gaze flickered between James's face and his wallet. 2 other customers, older women draped in designer wear, had stopped browsing to watch the interaction, their jewelry-laden hands clutching their purses just a little tighter. With visible reluctance, Karen moved to the display case. Her movements were exaggerated, as if she wanted everyone to witness her compliance. As she unlocked the case, her eyes never left James, watching him like a hawk tracking its prey. "I hope you understand," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness, "that these pieces require careful handling. We take security very seriously here." James nodded, acutely aware of how the security guard by the door had shifted his position, moving closer. His phone buzzed again. 2:51 p.m. 9 minutes early, but then again his mother had always taught him to be prepared for anything. Karen placed the bracelet on the black velvet display pad with exaggerated care. The silver butterfly charm caught the light, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the glass counter. It was perfect, exactly what Emma would love. "The price, again, is $850. Karen emphasized each word, her tone suggesting she was explaining something to a child. "Plus tax." James reached for his wallet again, but Karen's sharp intake of breath stopped him. Her eyes had narrowed, focused on his hands with sudden intensity. "Perhaps," she said, voice harder now, "you'd like to show me some ID first? And explain where a student gets that kind of money." Before James could respond, his fingers, steady until now, betrayed him. As he reached for the bracelet, it slipped, a fraction of a second that seemed to stretch into eternity. The silver piece hit the glass counter with a soft clink, then bounced onto the marble floor. The sound was barely audible, but Karen's reaction was explosive. "Security!" she shrieked, jumping back as if she'd been burned. "He's trying to steal it." The store erupted into chaos. The security guard lunged forward, hand on his radio. The two older women gasped in theatrical unison, backing away toward the door. And through it all, James stood perfectly still, his Harvard acceptance letter crinkling slightly in his pocket. "Ma'am," he started, voice calm despite the situation, "if you check the security cameras?" "Check the cameras?" Karen's laugh was sharp, hysteric. "I saw what I saw. You dropped it on purpose, thinking you could grab it and run." She was reaching for the store phone now, manicured fingers stabbing at the buttons. "Yes, police? We have a situation at Harrison and Company. Jewelers. Attempted theft in progress." James glanced at his phone. 2:53 p.m. His mother's last message glowed on the screen. Almost there. Stay calm. The next few minutes passed in a blur of accusations and arriving police officers. Their badges caught the same light that had made the butterfly charm dance. But there was nothing beautiful about this moment. "Hands where we can see them," the first officer commanded, hand resting on his holster. His nameplate read, "Officer Brooks." James complied, movements slow and deliberate. The second officer, younger and slightly hesitant, moved to retrieve the bracelet from the floor. "He came in here," Karen was saying, her voice trembling with manufactured fear, acting suspicious from the start. Then he deliberately dropped the bracelet, trying to. The soft click of heels against marble interrupted her narrative. The sound grew closer, measured and purposeful, like a metronome counting down the seconds. Through the store's glass doors, a figure approached, a woman in a tailored navy suit, her presence commanding enough to make the security guard straighten his posture instinctively. Officer Brooks turned, irritation flickering across his face at the interruption. "Ma'am, this is a police matter. You'll need to—" Actually, the woman's voice cut through the air like a perfectly sharpened blade. "This is now a federal matter." She stepped into the store, sunlight catching the gold badge on her hip. Dr. Sarah Wilson, director of the FBI's New York field office, didn't look at her son. She didn't need to. Instead, her gaze locked onto Karen, who had suddenly gone very, very pale. "I understand," Sarah continued, her tone professionally pleasant but carrying an undercurrent of steel, "that you've accused my son of attempted theft?" She gestured to the security cameras. "Shall we review the footage together? I'm particularly interested in seeing this deliberate dropping you mentioned." The color drained from Karen's face so quickly it was almost fascinating to watch. Officer Brooks's hand dropped from his holster, his expression shifting from authoritative to uncertain in record time. The son." Karen's voice had risen several octaves. Her eyes darted between James and Sarah, finally registering their shared features, the same confident stance. "Yes," Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My son, the Harvard-bound honor student who's been saving his tutoring money to buy his sister a birthday gift. But please, continue explaining how he was acting suspicious. I'm sure the Civil Rights Division will find it enlightening." The silence that followed was deafening. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, while Officer Brooks suddenly became very interested in his shoes. "There must be some misunderstanding," Karen stammered, her earlier confidence evaporating like morning dew. "We have strict security protocols." "Racial profiling is not a security protocol," Sarah stated, each word precise and cutting. "Now, about that bracelet my son was trying to purchase?" The store manager, who had been conspicuously absent during the entire incident, materialized as if by magic. "Dr. Wilson, please accept our sincerest apologies. The bracelet will be complimentary, of course." "No," James spoke for the first time since his mother's arrival. His voice was quiet but firm. "I saved for this. I'll pay full price." He pulled out his carefully counted savings. "I want there to be no question about how I acquired it." Sarah's expression softened with pride, even as her eyes remained steel-sharp. "Very well. but I trust the store will be implementing immediate changes in their training and policies. The manager nodded frantically. Yes, absolutely. We'll have comprehensive anti-bias training for all staff, effective immediately. And Ms. Matthews? He turned to Karen, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. We'll discuss your position here later. As James completed his purchase, properly this time, Officer Brooks approached Sarah, his earlier bravado replaced with professional respect. Director Wilson, we apologize for the misunderstanding. If you'd like to file a complaint? Oh, I will, Sarah assured him, her smile professional but promising consequences. Expect a full review of response protocols on your captain's desk tomorrow morning. 10 minutes later, James and his mother walked out of Harrison and Company, the silver bracelet properly wrapped in a blue velvet box. The afternoon sun still sparkled off the store's windows, but something had fundamentally changed. You knew, James said quietly as they walked. You knew something like this might happen. That's why you were nearby. Sarah's steps didn't falter. I've been the first black woman in too many rooms not to know, baby. But what matters is how we handle it. You did good in there. Kept your calm, stood your ground. James clutched the velvet box, thinking of Emma's upcoming birthday, of the moment that should have been simple but became so much more. Will it ever change? It changes every time we refuse to back down, Sarah replied, her voice soft but determined. Every time we stand our ground with dignity. Every time we prove them wrong. She squeezed his shoulder. Now let's go home. Emma's been texting me non-stop about her surprise. James smiled, his first genuine smile since entering the store. The butterfly charm in the box seemed to carry a different weight now, not just a gift, but a reminder that sometimes the most powerful response to prejudice is success, dignity, and the quiet strength to stand your ground. As they walked away, Karen watched through the store window, her hands shaking as she typed out her resignation letter. Sometimes justice comes not in dramatic confrontations, but in the quiet realization that the world is changing, one small moment at a time. Stories like James and Sarah's happen every day across America, but not all of them end with justice being served. What makes the difference? Sometimes it's having an ally in your corner, but more often it's the courage to stand up with dignity and the wisdom to know your worth. If this story touched your heart or made you think differently about the small moments that can change lives, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every share becomes a small act of change, a ripple in the pond of social consciousness. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the ongoing journey toward a more just world. Hit the notification bell to never miss a moment of truth, courage, and transformation. Remember, change doesn't always come with flashing lights and sirens. Sometimes it comes in the quiet dignity of a young man buying a birthday gift for his sister, in the proud stance of a mother protecting her child, or in the moment someone realizes their prejudices don't define who they must become. Join our community of storytellers and change makers. Together, we can make these stories of justice and dignity more common than those of prejudice and misunderstanding. Like, share, and let us know in the comments, what small moment in your life became a turning point for change?